Hey there guys, Micah Curtis here, and I'm sorry that we haven't had any reviews or anything in the last couple of weeks. Reason is that my editor is actually out of the country right now, so I've been largely focusing on some personal business and things of that nature. I won't go into detail of what's going on because it's not been fun, and I'm not going to trauma dump on my damn audience. And there's a reason for that. You see, the theme of today's video is that the arts are a service industry. Now, the funny thing is that I originally had a different title for this video, and this is actually the third time I've recorded it. And I realized something when I was sitting around watching Kitchen Nightmares and working on a gunpla that I'm working on as I'm, sanding the parts down and getting them painted and things like that. It kind of dawned on me that I needed a different perspective in regards to approaching a subject of why modern writing sucks and what tends to affect the attitudes of writers and what's making them unhireable, essentially, at this point. Because as we've seen, the SAG-AFTRA strikes are still going on. And I've looked at lists of demands, I've talked it over with other people in my audience. I think I actually had a conversation with Servant of God about that, now that I think about it. Where we were talking about what they were asking for and then the counter offers and how much lower the counter offers were than the original ask, as in maybe a fourth or a fifth. If Servant's in the comments, he can probably expand because he's got the document handy somewhere. But regardless, it kind of keyed into something that I had seen on Twitter. I had seen an artist who, I'm not going to pick on him, I'm just going to use his bad attitude as an example because it was bad. Who was basically saying that no Comicsgate creator could afford him. And I'm like, okay, well that's an interesting statement. I thought of who I work with. I've got Raphael, of course, over on Inglewood. I've got Stark, who's working with me over on Project Lazarus. And then, of course, as everybody knows, I've got Preston Acevedo working with me on 3 nights, 4 days. All three are fantastic artists. We also have Doug Franchen working with us on the Peregrine books. And it seems to me that as long as Xavier's being the creative drive and Scott's doing the writing, and then we've got Doug on that book, that's going to keep going in that direction. We've also got a great artist named Mannix who's going to be working on Human Shield with us as well. So it goes without saying that Grindstone Arts already, as we're only really a month old, we've got projects underneath our umbrella that have a really high standard of art quality. So I looked at this gentleman's art. I had heard of him before, and I saw that it was not bad, but it was kind of simplistic and very cartoony. And I thought about, and I'm not going to say the exact page rates of my artist because that's unprofessional. And by the way, if you're ever going to hire an artist, never do that. But I said to myself, if this guy is pricing himself higher than someone like Preston Acevedo, who has worked for Antarctic Press and things of that nature, I think to myself, well, not to mention Preston's done work with Wesley Snipes on his really successful comic, which is called The Exiled. Why on earth would I want to pay extra for this gentleman when he doesn't have a style that I'm not convinced is going to move enough copies to justify his price point? Now, more than likely, if this gentleman sees this video, he will probably take offense to that statement, in which case, it's funny how offense is always taken, very rarely given. But when it comes right down to it, that is an attitude that I see that permeates the arts in general. It's all ego, and there's no economic sense to it. There's no realization that in the arts, as in if you're in the restaurant business or if you're in the insurance business or anything of that nature, you're in a service business. You're in a service industry. You can't escape it. It's just not, it's not, it's not something that you can get away from. There's a reason that your boy Zach's allegory with calling comic books a hot dog stand resonates with so many people, and why so many of us say just sell the hot dogs. It's because this is a service industry. We are selling a product. Is it art? Is it something that comes from the soul? Is it something that we do because it fulfills a part of us? Absolutely. But at the same time, I would consider a chef like Gordon Ramsay or Marco Pierre White to be an artist. Have you seen some of the dishes that they prepare? That's art. I would say the same thing about a lot of chefs and cooks in general, is they treat their dishes like art, yet it is meant to be consumed. And I'll freely admit, I'm kind of the same way with my own cooking. And the thing is that whenever you're in a service industry, your labor has a price point to it. Now, one thing that is sort of this weird thing that whenever it comes to like the SAG-AFTRA strikes or things like that, people say, well, they're humans, they're people, they deserve to make more money. Okay, your existence does not mean that you should get a paycheck. Now, I believe that, I'm a Christian, I believe that we're all God's children, and that He has given us purpose within this life, and He desires for us to do great things. With that said, just because we have that inherent value to our Lord and Savior, doesn't mean that our labor doesn't have a price point to it, because our labor, in my opinion at least, is not something that's actually directly related to your just existing. That's ridiculous. Labor is something that you offer. It is, in its own essence, a product. And products have value. And though value is subjective, ultimately, there are consensuses that are reached in regards to how valuable that labor is. And this is something that we oftentimes see, is a lot of modern writers seem to think that just because they are doing a job, that they deserve these pay raises, even though the entertainment industry is actually performing worse and worse over the last, I want to say, 3 or 4 years. And why is that? Now, there's socio-political stuff that we could go into about that. And I have a feeling that people will mention it in the comments, and somebody's probably going to get mad at me for not wanting to talk about it. But this isn't really about me talking politics. This is about me talking about being a writer. And these are tips that I'm giving, and advice that I'm giving, and analysis that I'm giving, that honestly are going to apply no matter what part of the political aisle you're on. So that's why I'm doing that, just so people understand my modus operandi here. When it comes right down to it, if you do a job, the expectation from the business owner is that you are going to be a boon to that particular business, and that your labor is going to bring in more customers, improve the overall quality of the restaurant, and thus improve the bottom line. Your expectation for being there is to be someone that enhances the business, not as a detriment to it. And if you come in with a good work ethic, and you come in humble and happy to be there and excited about your work, then you will be a boon to that particular place. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that just because you're a good person that you're not going to get screwed over by some businesses. Trust me, I've been there. I have been the victim of budget cuts more than once in my life. I've been laid off. And oddly enough, it seems like it happens to me every time that there's a significant economic downturn, is that because I've come on to a business a little bit later than other people, even though I'm performing up to par, if not above par, I tend to be cut because of lack of seniority, which is a big-time bummer. Happened to me back in 2008, and I'll admit it actually happened to me recently. So, when it comes right down to it, though, even when that happens, think of it this way. I leave a publication and I'm still not going to say who I worked for, but I left that publication with my immediate manager and, other employees that I worked with, such as the writers. They all had a very positive experience working with me. And if you ask any of them, and if any future employers ask them or look at my resume where I've got them listed as references, well, that's going to help me get another job where people are going to realize that my labor has value. And that's largely because I personally try to stay humble about it. I try to, stay open about it and still look at it like it's a service industry. A lot of modern writers refuse, and really artists in general, because I guess this is something that we could talk about for everybody that works in the arts, is modern writers and artists just refuse to see it that way. They seem to think that that their egos are justified. And I'll be honest, I've met some pretty egotistical artists. I'll be completely frank, I've met some incredibly egotistical ones. But I'm of the opinion that there is such a thing as a justified ego. Because one person I'll pick on, who will definitely brag about his accomplishments, is Ethan Van Sciver. But I've known Ethan for, I've known Ethan for almost 6 years now. With Ethan, he's obviously an incredibly accomplished artist. He's been in the industry for a long time. He's worked on several successful books. He is very good at what he does. He's one of my favorite artists ever. And I'm not just blowing smoke up his rear end just because he's somebody that I'm friendly with. It's largely because he has a lot of talent. And I've met other super talented artists as well that don't have big egos, but if they wanted to brag, they absolutely could. Dale Keown is another one. Dale, like Ethan, is another one of my top 3 favorite artists of all time. And of course, Dale is the greatest Hulk artist ever. And The Pit was great too. So, and I liked his work on The Darkness as well. But regardless, the thing about it is that these are veterans. These are guys who've been in the comic book industry 20, 30 years and have put in a lot of really successful work. I have a feeling that another person that I've met that would, if he wanted to have an ego, it would be completely justified, would be Chuck Dixon. He's, in my opinion, one of the top 5 most iconic Batman writers of all time. He created Bane, for God's sake. Yet he was a really humble guy when I got to meet him. But regardless, these are guys that know their value because they have a great body of work. But if your body of work, if it's looked at and all a potential employer sees is a list of failures or a list of underperforming bits, or you're just not able to bring people in to, interact with and buy your art, why would they want to hire you? Why would they want to bring you around? Why would they want to do this? And this is generally the problem with not looking at it like a service industry. Modern writers are some of the most arrogant people I've ever seen. Modern artists, too. I see Twitter artists that charge $700, $800 for digital art that has no emotion to it, that has no... It invokes nothing. I remember I saw this Chainsaw Man piece where they had this digital artist had done a homage, I guess. I say I guess because I didn't like the art of that classic Chainsaw Man cover where Denji has been transformed and Makima is standing in front of him, wrapping her arms around his neck, as over her head, and it's a really, really good looking cover. And this person had replicated the cover and it had no emotion whatsoever. Another thing that, I talk about is the Adi Granov problem. You can see his art right there. He's one of the most notable Iron Man artists of all time. Adi Granov had done Iron Man Extremis, but he didn't do a lot of sequentials because he's a really good cover artist, but his sequentials, they lack an energy and a sense of flow to them. Plus, there's not really a lot of good use of negative space in his art sometimes, at least in panels, as compared to other artists. And these flaws are things that, in my opinion, just aren't addressed because these artists are so egotistical about their own value. And the fact of the matter is that you as a human being have value as a creation, as a child of God. And I will never abandon that belief. On the flip side, what needs to be considered is that all labor has a price point. And if you are in a position where you can't draw money, you are not worth more money. Or I should say your labor is not. And that's just a reality of the business. So what do you do in that particular case? You might ask yourself, Micah, what would your advice be to writers that are in a position where they want to get hired, they want to make more money, but they don't have a lot of experience? My advice is always be humble, be considerate of the employer, be grateful for the opportunity, have the customer's desires at the front of your mind. By all means, make your art. But on top of that, with your employer, make sure that you're doing what you can to ensure that they see you as a valuable asset. And one thing that I would do, and this is something that I encourage people, and a lot of contracts that I write, and this is admittedly an advertisement for my artists, that if I see your art and you're not very experienced, but you're really good at what you do, what I tend to do as an employer, and what I think people should negotiate for if they're not already, is bonus structures. Basically, if your art sells this book to this dollar value, then you get a bonus. And I think that that's a good way to do it, because it's an investment in the future of that artist. And I think that if you believe in yourself as a writer, even though you're not that well known, that's something I think you should ask for. Is say, you just, whatever the salary is, whatever the baseline pay is, say, all right, I'll take it. If it's enough for you to live on, take it. Never take a dying wage. And you shouldn't. You know, if you accept a contract, you are saying that this is enough. Just so you guys realize, like, that saying the opposite is a dick move, and it's honestly a lie. But if you're going to take that particular contract, do so with gusto, but ask for bonuses, ask for stuff on the back end, and ask as an investment in you. Basically, come in with the confidence that even though you're a lesser known guy, that the quality of your work is going to be so good, it's going to bring in more people than another prospect, and that you just want residuals on top of that if it succeeds. If. What that does is it puts you in a position where you realize that this could fall on its face. And you're going to do the job, you're going to do it right, but your goal is growth. And if your goal is growth, you have the same goal as your employer. Because the goal of every employer is growth. One of my favorite lines from the movie Tommy Boy, which is, it's just a line that's thrown out there by Tommy's dad, is, in business you're either growing or you're dying. Every businessman that is worth his salt knows that. So, if you're invested in the growth of whoever you're working for, and you're willing to put that forward, and you're willing to be humble, but still try to invest in your own future, employers will see that as a positive. And you will find that you're going to get jobs more often. So, with that said, folks, I want to thank you guys for listening to this. Again, stay humble. That's the key to everything. So I'm going to humbly ask for you guys to check out a few things. First and foremost, 3 Nights, 4 Days Part 2 is on Indiegogo. We are still accepting pre-orders for this particular book, even while we sort out this PayPal situation. And I am pretty confident that it will get sorted one way or another. And of course, we're looking for ways to, of course, get these books out faster, and, you know, if for whatever reason things go south. So, but regardless, 3 Nights, 4 Days Part 2 is live on Indiegogo. If you missed out on the first book, please check it out. We have 180 backers on it. I'd like to get it to 200. So if there's 20 of you out there who have not backed this book yet, it's going to be some time before it's finished, but go ahead and get those pre-orders in. Might as well, right? That way you're not scrambling or you miss out. Because I constantly get people who are like, oh, I missed out on it. You know, how can I pick up a copy? Well, right now it's Indiegogo exclusive. I guess you're going to have to wait. Don't wait. If you got $50 and you want issues 1 and 2, go get it. You got $25, you want issue 1, go get it. It's available right now. Second, American Monsters, my novella, which is a prequel to the comic book Project Lazarus, also live on Indiegogo, still taking orders. It's just a $9 novella, available in digital or physical. So go ahead and check that out. Hopefully soon we'll actually just go ahead and bring out the digital product for everybody so that people can see that, because we'll at least be able to fulfill on that level. And then finally, of course, the St. Peregrine Dark Knight in the Witty City, the big Grindstone Arts crossover with our 2 flagship characters. You don't want to miss it. This is going to be an action-packed book that is going to be a blast to read. So on that note, guys, I want to thank you all so much for hanging out. Oh, free print, by the way, for those of you who back the book and you sign up for this mailing list. So I'm giving you free things to sign up for a mailing list that costs you $0 to sign up for. Get on it. With that said, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe. My name is Micah Curtis, your favorite vanilla gorilla. Have yourselves a great rest of your day.